I'm Fee. Welcome to the Backlog quest. One of my goals is to be completely debt-free and have a safety net so I never have to worry about money. I'm pretty decent with money as it is, but there's always room for improvement, which is why I picked up this book, The Barefoot Investor by Pape. The Barefoot Investor is very Australian-based, so if you're living in Australia, it's perfect. If you live in other parts of the world, you can still apply what is in this book, but the recommendations of which bank accounts to open and super funds to change are not going to be relevant to you. I don't even know if overseas countries have super funds. It's not something I've even thought about before now. The synopsis of this book is, this is the only money guide you'll ever need. And I agree with this statement. This book is very, very easy to follow. I've previously listened to The Barefoot Investor on audiobook last year. I enjoyed listening to the audiobook, but I found myself frustrated when Scott would do stories about how he'd help someone, when I just wanted to get to the meat of the financial information I wanted to know. While I was reading, I didn't have the same issue with the sections as I did when I was listening to them. I felt that I needed this book in paperback so that I could easily go back to reference on a regular basis to keep myself in check and refresh on certain things as I go through the book throughout the year. When I went to purchase the book, what do? I pick up the wrong book. Instead of coming home with the Barefoot Investor, I come home with the Barefoot Investor for Families. I didn't plan to purchase this book because the Families book is based for people with families and I don't have a family. But since I already bought it, I decided to keep the book anyway and give it a read. The Barefoot Investor for Families is about how Scott and his wife do pocket money for their children using jam jar system, based on his money saving for adults, which he calls a bucket system, and how to incorporate this into your family. The basis of the jam jar and the bucket system are to split your money 3 ways. The children one is slightly different since they don't have an emergency fund like the adults bucket system does. A lot of the Barefoot Investor for Families is more heavily based towards teenagers, getting them ready for the workforce so that they are financially stable when they go out into the world on their own. There were part of the Families books that I noticed were directly from the Barefoot Investor, such as the section about credit cards and the Commonwealth Bank Dolomite accounts. A Dolomite account is something that I did have as a child through school, and Scott doesn't all like, which after listening to his explanation, I can understand why he doesn't like them. I didn't mind the doubled up chapters because they were sections that were relevant to both books. There was a section in the Families book about getting your teenager to save money on your bills. I wish that in the Barefoot Investor they had this section about how to save yourself money on your bills, unless it was there and I just missed it because I don't remember it clearly. There's another section in the Families book that I know for a fact isn't in the Barefoot Investor that I think would perfectly suit the Barefoot Investor, and that was a section on wills. And that's something that I do want to do myself. I don't have a will, but I want a will. So I'll be going through that section again later on. After reading Barefoot Investor for Families, I went back to the Barefoot Investor. Parts of what Scott recommends I was doing before I read his book. I was splitting my money between spending on things I wanted, which in my case was usually books, DVDs or games. I had another account for spending on bills, groceries and fuel, and I had a final account for saving for big goals such as overseas holidays, car and house deposit. Scott's book, while similar to what I'm already following, it's different enough that I felt that it was important to get the book to increase my savings so that I can go back and refresh myself easier. It's easier to find the correct section in a book flipping through it than it was with the audiobooks trying to find the correct location to what I wanted to refresh myself on. While I listened to Scott's book last year, I didn't really follow it since I had my own systems in place already. I was saving for an overseas holiday, and if I changed myself to follow Scott's plans, it would have changed how much money I was putting towards my holiday, and I didn't want to do that. So I decided to just do my own thing last year, and this year I'd change to following the book completely. I'm even going to follow his recommendation on pillows in one of the chapters. Yes, the Barefoot Investor recommends buying a new pillow. Do you know any other financial guide with such recommendations? Because I don't. There is one step of Scott's books that I don't think I will be able to do, and that is cutting up your credit card. For me, my credit card has always been a safety net. It's not something that I just use. It's something that I have for emergencies. And I've always got my credit card to zero as fast as possible. It has got me out of trouble in the past when my car broke down, and I use it for a few regular subscriptions so I don't have to think about how much money I have in my bank account. I'm trying to change my way of thinking about my credit card, and I'm going to stop using it for subscriptions, and I'm going to take it out of my wallet so I don't have the temptation. And if I feel like I can cut it up, I will, but for now, I'm keeping it hidden in a drawer. One of the chapters in The Barefoot Investor is about doubling your income. Part of the chapter was about how to increase it where you're already working. For me, this isn't something that's really viable because I would have to change my office locations to move up to a higher paying position, and that involves moving house or a longer commute time to work, and that's something that I don't really want to do. His other suggestion is a side hustle, and for me, I have two. The first one is writing, and I've been doing daily writing for quite a number of years now. When I was a child, I wanted to be a published author, and this was a dream that I pushed aside due to my learning problems that I've already mentioned in my BookTube newbie tag video. I've decided that despite these issues that I'm going to go and try and get myself published anyway, and I've put my morning writing time to focusing on completing books and getting them fully polished so that I'm happy enough with them to actually go towards trying to get them published. That's not going to be something that happens anytime quickly. It could take me a whole year. It could take me 10 years. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm putting the effort into it and it's not going to go to waste because I enjoy writing. My second side hustle is this YouTube account. I didn't start YouTube because of money. I started YouTube because I want to talk about the things that I love. But if it brings in an income, I'd like to put that towards funding my books and DVD collection. The Barefoot Investor and The Barefoot Investor for Families are two very simple to read and follow books that I highly recommend. I've read both books over a weekend. If you want to hear about my journey following the advice of the Barefoot Investor, or you're already following the Barefoot Investor yourself, let me know in the comments below. And that brings my total completed for the year up to 1 video series, 0 movies, 3 books, and 0 games. Thank you for joining me on this barefoot book adventure. I'll see you next time.